Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm here with you today to read some great books about space. I'm going to adjust my camera as we're waiting for more people to hop on. Great. When you're here, make sure that you say hi and tell me who you are with today, your kids' names, so I can give them a shout out. Let's see if I can set this so that you guys can see my awesome books I'm going to read with you today. Sometimes it takes me a minute just so it gets it just right. Does it ever take you a couple tries to do something right? It does for me. Good morning. If you're joining us, make sure you say hello. Tell me who you are, your name of any kids that are with you this morning. We have some awesome books all about space we're going to read today, and we're going to start in just a couple of minutes. So get comfy, find a spot so that you can see me and you can hear me as I'm going to share some great books with you this morning. Good morning. If you have kids with you, type in their names so I can give them a good morning as well. I'll wave to some of you. Good morning. I have books here. We're going to learn all about space for a great day. Talk about some important things that are going on in the world. And if you have questions, you can always type them in and I'll do my best to answer them during the lesson. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Laura and this is Learning with Laura. Today we're going to learn all about space. But as we get started, we're first going to sing our good morning song. So join me in singing. Here we go. Turn it up for you to hear. Hello. Hello. Bonjour. Bonjour. Hola. Hola. Vagnuda. Vagnuda. Good morning. Shalom. Guten Tag. Guten Tag. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Nehoma. Nehoma. Round the world in every land, when we bow or shake our hands or our elbows on your face, say hello to the human race. Hello, hello, buongiorno, buongiorno, zdravo, zdravo, jumbo, jumbo, yasis, yasis, yonoput, Yonoput, Здравствуйте, Здравствуйте, Namaste, Namaste, round the world in every land, when we bow or shake our hands or our elbows, lead the way, say hello to a brand new day. Hello, hello, aloha, aloha, hello. Good morning. Thanks for joining me. If you've just joined me and you have kids with you, make sure you type in their names so I know who is here and I can say good morning to all of you. So today we are going to learn about space. Again, I am Laura and this is Learning with Laura. I don't have Paisley and Reese with me today. They might join me in a little bit, so we'll find out. But let's get our minds and brains ready and turned on before we start our space lesson. And we're going to do that by going through all of our alphabet letters. Make sure you say them loud and proud so that I can hear you. And you can show me how smart that you are. Here we go. Allie Alligator says, let me turn it. Allie Alligator says, ah, ah, ah. Bubba Bear says, b, b, b. Katina Cat says, k, k, k. Dee Dee Deer says, d, d, d. Ellie Elephant says, eh, eh, eh. Francie Fish says, f, f, f. Gordo Gorilla says, g, g, g. If you're joining us, make sure you type in your kids' names so I can say hi and good morning to them. We're warming up our brains with our letters. Honey Horse says, Any inchworm says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Jerry jellyfish says, "Ja, ja, ja." Ko kangaroo says, "K, k, k." Lizzie lizard says, "Oh, oh." Missy mouse says, "Mmm, mmm." Nigel night owl says, "Mmm, mmm." Ollie octopus says, "Ah, ah, ah." Pee-wee penguin says, "Pa, pa, pa." Queenie quail says, "Qua, qua, qua." Robbie rabbit says, "Er." Sammy snake says, "Sss." Tony tiger says, "T, t, t." Umber umbrella bird says, it's so hard to fly. Vincent vampire bat says, "V, v." Wally weasel says, "Wah, wah." Xavier fox says, "Ks, ks, ks." Yancey yak says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And ZD zebra says, "Zzz." All right, now that we are awake and we are ready and our brains are awake and ready for our lesson, let's jump right into it. So today we are going to talk all about space. There have been some really exciting things happening going on, and so we're going to talk about it. And I have 2 books that I'm going to share with you today. The first book is called Space Exploration. This is a nonfiction book, which means it's real. It has real facts in it. Do you know how I know? I look at the pictures and I ask myself, does that look real to me? If the answer is yes, then that's one clue that tells me it's a nonfiction book. The other book I'm going to share with you today is called Ron's Big Mission. This is a fiction book, which means it's kind of pretend. Although this one I would say is historical fiction because it's based on something that really did happen a long time ago about a little boy named Ron, who grows up to be a famous astronaut, Ron McNair. So before we start reading, I thought I would talk to you about some really important and kind of big words that maybe you have heard recently. Maybe you heard your parents talking about it. Maybe you heard it on the TV. So the first one I want to tell you is SpaceX. We've heard lots about SpaceX, which is the group of people working together that sent the spaceship up recently. When you send a spaceship up into outer space, the word is called launch. Can you say the word? Launch. Launch means to shoot something out, whether it's outside or out into space. That's called launch. They launched a rocket, a spaceship, into the air. Let's talk about some other important words. Astronauts. Astronauts are the people that go and travel into space. There are some really important astronauts that we have been learning about. Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, I hope I said your names right, are the 2 astronauts that just launched from SpaceX into outer space. Another famous astronaut that we're going to learn about today is Ron McNair, the one who inspired this story that I told you about. 2 other important things to mention, or words that you might hear, is Dragon spacecraft. That is the name of the spacecraft or space shuttle that launched into space with Doug and Bob on board, the 2 astronauts. Where were they going, do you wonder? They were going to the International, that's a big word, I'm going to say it again, International Space Station. Wow. So now that I told you some of the big words that you might be hearing, we are going to read a little bit about it. Let me know if you hear or see any of our new words. So let's first start with our space exploration book, our nonfiction book, and then we're going to jump into our story about Ron McNair afterwards. I marked a couple of pages I wanted to share with you today. The first one I wanted to share with you is all about how astronauts like Ron McNair and Bob and Doug that are up at the International Space Station, how they prepare. Check out these cool pictures. Here they are practicing floating in space and floating in what it would feel like to be upside down inside spacecraft, like Dragon, the Dragon spacecraft, right? So they do all kinds of practice and training to get ready for their mission. What do astronauts wear? Let's take a look at this page. This shows us all the different types of spacesuits. And spacesuits have changed, right? Because we have scientists studying what is the best gear to keep our astronauts safe. They have an outer helmet, a pressure helmet, which is inside. And they even have a little cap, a communication cap, to help them hear and talk to each other. They have specialized suits and boots and gloves. Oftentimes, astronauts will also have a flag on part of their astronaut suit to show people what country they are from. The other thing I want to show you is in a picture of a space station. Look at this picture right here. This big part is a space station, and here comes a rocket or a space shuttle coming up to land. And they're going to connect, and then that way the astronauts can come off the shuttle and into the space station. Isn't that cool? All right, so now we're going to jump into our other story today. This one is historical fiction, which means it's a fiction story, but it's based on history, which means a lot of this really did happen. But the pictures aren't necessarily real pictures like this. They're still illustrations. They're still drawings. So I'm going to call this one historical fiction, okay? This book is called Ron's Big Mission. And I'm going to scoot up a little bit closer to my camera so that you guys can really see this cool, awesome story. Ron's Big Mission. And as we read this story, I want you to remember this story is based on this astronaut here, this brave astronaut. His name is Ron McNair, who flew up into outer space or was on a mission headed towards outer space. Here we go. Ron's Big Mission. Title page, the page with the title, Ron's Big Mission. This story is by Rose Blue and Corinne Nader, illustrated by Don Tate, which means Don Tate drew the pictures. Here's Ron right here. It looks like he's looking outside of his window, maybe thinking about what? What do you think he's thinking about? Outer space? The moon? Becoming an astronaut? Maybe. Let's read. Here we go. I'm going to make sure my book is nice and centered. It's a little tricky because I do it backwards. Here we go. You're up early this morning, Ron. What's the rush? Asked Mrs. McNair. Come and have your breakfast. I made some oatmeal. I have to go, Mama, said Ron, tying his sneakers. I have something to do this morning. You always have something to do, said his mother with a smile. Just be home by lunchtime, okay? Where do you think he's going? What do you think he's doing today? Let's find out. Ron was 9 years old. That morning, he left his house with a plan. He'd been thinking about it for a long time. It was a beautiful South Carolina summer day, and Ron looked up at the blue, blue sky. Someday, he thought, he would be up there, flying a plane. Here's the plane. He wanted to be a pilot when he grew up, but today, Ron had something else on his mind, something very important. Here he goes. He's out on a walk in his neighborhood.
Ron walked down the street as fast as he could. He didn't want to be late. "Hi, Ron," the grocer called from the front of his store. "There you are, just in time for a donut." Do you like donuts? Raise your hand if you like donuts. Let's see, do you think Ron's going to get a donut? Do you think he's going to stop? "Morning, Mr. Douglas," said Ron. "Thank you, but there's someplace I've got to be." And Ron kept on walking. Wow, he must be going somewhere really special if he didn't even have time to stop for a donut. Let's see where he's going. Down by the schoolyard, Ron saw his friend Carl shooting baskets. "All right, you made it," called Carl. "Hi, Carl," said Ron. "I wish I could stay, but I've got something important to do." "More important than basketball and summer vacation?" said Carl. "Are you kidding?" Ron laughed. He loved to play basketball, but not today. Today was too important. Ron kept on walking. Wow, so important he didn't have time to play with his buddies. Let's see where he's going. Before I read, I want you to stop and I want you to think. Look at the pictures. Where do you think Ron is? Call it out. Where do you think he is? You think so? Let's check the words. When Ron got to the Lake City Public Library, he stopped. This was it. He was hot from walking so fast, and he was nervous too. He took a deep breath, lifted his head high, and went inside. Mrs. Scott was busy getting ready for all the people who would be using the library today. As the head librarian, she had to make sure that everything was neat and orderly. Mrs. Scott looked up to welcome her first visitor of the day. She smiled as Ron walked in. He was her best customer, which means he came to the library a lot. Ron gave a little wave to Mrs. Scott and went right to the shelves. Have you ever been to the library? Here we go. I'll move it this way so you can see. It took Ron a while to find some books. He always looked for books that showed children who looked like him. But that was hard. There were not many books about black kids on the shelves. At last, Ron found some books on airplanes. Remember, he really liked airplanes. He took the books and started to walk to the front desk. Ron felt nervous. Show me your nervous face. He felt nervous and his hands felt a little sweaty, but he knew what he wanted to do. Mrs. Fielding, a white lady who was often at the library, stopped him. "You can give me the books and I'll check them out for you, Ron," she said gently. "No thanks, Mrs. Fielding," Ron said. "I'm going to do it all by myself." "But Ron," she started to say. "I want you to notice something. I want you to look at the clothes that Mrs. Fielding is wearing. Look at her hat. Is that the type of hat that we see people wear today? Not too often, maybe every now and then. Look at what's on her hands. Gloves, yes. Back in the old days, people and ladies would often wear gloves when they went out and about and ran their errands or went to the library or the grocery store. Same with this type of dress and handbag. These pictures tell us that this story happened in the past, which means it's not happening today. This story is happening in the past. Remember how we talked about how it's historical fiction? Here we go. Ron was already on his way to the front desk. He put the books on the counter. "I'd like to check these out, please," said Ron. The desk clerk didn't look at him. Didn't she hear me? Ron wondered. Ron knew what he had to do. Look at this picture. Look at how the illustrator shows Ron. Look at where Ron's feet are. This is important. He jumped up on the counter. He wanted the desk clerk to know he was serious. Let's go, there we go. "I'd like to check out these books," he said again. At first, the desk clerk and Mrs. Scott just looked at each other. "You know you can't check out books, Ron," said Mrs. Scott. "You can read them here. That's the rule. Only white people can check out books from the library. Ron looked at Mrs. Scott and the desk clerk politely, but he would not budge, which means he would not move. I always read them here. Today, I want to check them out, said Ron. Mrs. Scott and the desk clerk did not know what to do. Ron wouldn't get off the counter. So remember, we talked about how this story happened in the past. This happened, in fact, the year is written in the back here. We believe this story happened in 1959. So if you're a kid watching this, it could be when your grandparents were younger. It's important to know that, and it's important to know that during this time, people and children that were black were not allowed to do the same things as people and children that were white. Why? That is a great question. People didn't understand that just because you look different doesn't mean that your heart or that your inside is any different. We all need to be treated the same. We all need to be able to check out library books. But in the past, that wasn't the way. Today, we are trying to make things better. Today, everyone can check out library books, but we still are working to make sure that people know that no matter what color skin you have, everyone is beautiful inside, and that we need to treat each other the same. Let's jump back to the story and see what happens next. People were staring. Finally, the desk clerk called the Lake City police. She didn't know what else to do. Remember, this was a long time ago, and he wanted to check out a book, but he wasn't allowed to. 2 policemen came right over. Let someone check out the books for you, son, said one of the policemen. You know the rules. But Ron just shook his head. He would not budge. Ron knew what was right and what was wrong, and he was going to do something about it. He was going to make a difference. Now Mrs. Scott called Ron's mother. Mrs. McNair came to the library very quickly. I know how you feel, baby, she said, but you have to follow the rules. I can't, Mama, Ron told her. It's wrong. The rules are not fair. I'm going to say that again because that's a really important line in this story. The rules are not fair. Why can't I check out books like everybody else? No one said anything. Not the desk clerk, not Mrs. Scott, not the policeman, not even Ron's mother. Mrs. Scott looked at Ron. She thought about all the times that Ron had come into the library and all the times he sat at the tables for hours looking over so many books. He was her best customer, and she knew what she had to do. So everyone's in charge of their bodies. Everyone's in charge of making their own choices about doing what they think is right. Let's see what she does. Mrs. Scott walked back into her office and started writing. Ron wondered, what is she doing? Look at the picture. She's writing on a small white card. Here's Ron on the desk, wondering what's going to happen. Mrs. Scott returned and handed Ron a library card. His library card. Ron looked at Mrs. Scott and smiled. As he jumped to the floor, he thought he saw her smile too. I'd like to check out these books, please, he said, handing the card to the desk clerk. Look at his big smile. Look how happy he is. Look at his mom's smile and Mrs. Scott's smile. It's a great day. The desk clerk took his library card and stamped the cards in the back of the books. These are due back in 2 weeks, she said. Ron smiled. Thank you, he said. He tucked the books under his arm and took his mother's hand. Together they walked home. Ron couldn't wait to get to his room and open to page 1. And the cool thing about this story is that in the back, it tells us all about, let's see if, there we go, Ron McNair, the famous astronaut, the little boy from the story. He grew up and became an astronaut. He studied space and planes and gravity and all sorts of things that astronauts study. Isn't that a great story? So it's important to remember that although this one happened in the past, in the way back, there are still things that we are trying to figure out and make things fair for everyone, no matter what they look like, no matter how tall or small or the color of their skin, that everyone deserves things like a library card, kindness, fair jobs, fair schools, things like that. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me. We read Ron's Big Mission and an all about space exploration book. Join me again on Thursday. We're going to continue our lesson. We're going to learn more about space. We're going to talk more about Ron McNair, and we'll come back and check on our new words to see if there's any other new space words we can add. So before Thursday, I have a job for you. Type or send me any questions that you have, and I will do my best to answer the questions on Thursday when we come back together to talk about Ron McNair and space exploration. Bye.